Hey, this is Josh for Retooled.net, and in this video we're going to be talking about the new updates coming to Premiere Pro. Now these are the updates that are announced at NAB 2017, and there are a ton of little new features coming that we're not going to spend too much time on, and one big feature. So let's just talk about some of those little features really quickly. Some of them include publishing to Adobe Stock directly from the export media window, the Lumetri controls being adjusted to work with overbrights, being able to go to the media browser and set an in and out that can be used for partial ingest for transcoding purposes, 3-axis rotation for VR workflows, and MacBook Pro Touch Bar support. There's also a little change coming to captions, which I will demo here. And it's just really a usability thing. So let's say that I have these captions, caption 1, caption 2, caption 3. You'll notice they all have different colors. And in the past, you used to have to edit each caption one at a time. Well, now you could just command select them, and I could come in here and select the background color, and for that I'll pick magenta, and for the text color I will pick white. And now if I scrub through here, you'll notice I have the magenta and the white on all three of them instead of having to do them one at a time, which could be super annoying if you had already done a ton of captioning work. Other than captions, one of the nice things that has been added over to Premiere 2017, if you go over to the audio workflow, you'll see there's a new panel called the Essential Sound panel. Now, those of you who have used Audition before might recognize this panel, and basically what it lets you do is select audio clips and tell it whether it's dialogue, music, sound effects, or ambience, and apply appropriate effects without knowing too much about audio and equalizers and things like that. So if we select music, I can do things like select the loudness, duration. Duration will essentially shorten the song and do a pitch shift, or elongate the song and do a pitch shift. It does not yet feature the remix feature found in Audition. Hopefully that'll come later on. Where this really gets helpful is things like dialogue. So if I say that this is dialogue and I want to select a bunch of clips and auto match the loudness between them, it will apply things that will help to match them. You can also enhance the speech, male or female, and do various equalizer things. And it's basically applying effects in the background without you being sort of an audio engineer and knowing exactly what these controls are. It's putting it essentially in layman terms for the average editor. Now let's move on to one of the biggest changes in the upcoming version of Premiere Pro 2017. I have this sequence here, and let's say I want to make a new title. So of course you think, all right, I'm going to go to the new item menu and click title. But you'll notice there is no longer an option to make a title there. Instead, you'll notice that there's a new tool in your toolbar called the Type tool. And I can actually just click right in my program monitor and start typing text layer 1. And I could type another one, text layer 2. And that's great. It's this new graphics workflow that you can do right in the program monitor without having to go into the title tool. And it's not just limited to titles. In fact, there's a new window if I go to Window, Essential Graphics, or I can access it by going to the new workspace, the graphics workspace, which is what I'll do. If I come over to that new graphics workspace, you'll notice there's this Essential Graphics panel, and there's two tabs in it, Browse and Edit. Well, we're going to start by talking about the Edit tab. So you'll see if I click on either one of these layers, I get their properties, I can move them in here. I can also just come in here with the arrow tool and move them around. I can adjust things like the font, of course, and the scale and the rotation and all the properties you'd expect. I can also come in with my type tool and draw a text box. So I can type, this is a text box, and I can have my text run from one line to another. And of course I have things like justification settings for text boxes down here. In addition to text boxes, I can also do vertical type by just clicking or by drawing a vertical text box as well. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to delete this as well. I'm just using the delete key. But it's not just limited to text. I can also come over to the pen tool, and if I hold down on that, you'll see I have a pen tool, a rectangle tool, and an ellipse tool. Now I'll start with the rectangle tool. I can just draw out a shape I could do the same with the ellipse tool. And of course, I can do a custom shape with the pen tool. And I can control things like fill and stroke and shadow. And it's a pretty powerful little workflow here. I'm going to delete this blank vertical text. I can also make items by going to new layer, and I have text, vertical text, rectangle, and ellipse, which I already talked about, but I also have this thing called from file. If I select from file, I can navigate to, let's say, a logo, and I'm just going to import this PSD, but I can also bring in video footage this way. Now, the point of doing an image in this sort of graphic layer, which this has created, is that I can move all of these things together. If you look at my timeline, it's created something called text layer 2 just because that was the name of the first thing I typed. But this is one graphics layer. So if I go over to the effects control, I can move all these layers together. I can throw effects on them. Let's say I throw blur over here. I can throw that on the clip and blur everything and change the order of the blur to affect or not affect certain items. And it's basically this container that has all of my text and graphic layers in one item. Now, if you're someone who's been using Premiere for a while, you might be asking, why did they redo the title tool? The title tool is actually pretty powerful. And the reason being is that it's old code, and it's something that was made a long time ago and no longer works with the suite of programs that Premiere does. So for instance, if I want these layers in After Effects, in the old title tool that wouldn't be possible. But now I could just select this layer in my timeline, and I could go over to After Effects, make a new comp, and hit paste. And here's my, well, in this case it is a pre-comp which has the motion properties, which I did, but if I go into that pre-comp, you'll see that the shapes are actually shape layers and the type is actually editable After Effects type. So it creates this great workflow where I could start something in Premiere and bring it over to After Effects. Now, if legacy title tool is still part of your workflow, that's okay. It's still in the program. It's just accessed somewhat differently. You have to go to File, New, Legacy Title, and it will open up the old title generator, which is still in there for the foreseeable future to support all your old titles in your old projects. But again, it's not the recommended workflow going forward. Now, what are we missing in the new title tool? After all, this is kind of a version 1.0 of this new tool, and it doesn't have everything that you may need. So the bad things about it, there's no spell check. Well, there wasn't one in the old title tool, so not a big deal. There's no custom guides, same. But there's also no gradient fill. So if you were using gradients in your shapes, you can't do that in here. Hopefully that'll come later. And the biggest gripe on my part is that there's no multiple selection of elements. So let's say I want to move two of these shapes at once or two of these text layers at once. Let's say I command or shift select them. Well, I can't do that. So yeah, it's kind of a pain that you can't do that and move 2 or 3 elements at a time. I guess the workaround would be to create separate graphics layers so that you could then just use the motion parameter to move the 2 that you need to move together, or duplicate this. Now, while I'm talking about duplicating, we should talk about the workflow for duplicating these titles and how it works. In the past, if you were to, say, copy and paste this title, if you made a change to one, it would change both of them. But now I'm going to copy and paste them, and I'm going to select this type, and I'm going to say new text. So now when I go to this one, it's still text layer 1, and this one is new text, and that applies to copy and pasting. It applies to option dragging. Every instance of a graphics layer is going to be a unique individual copy, with the caveat of if you want it to be sort of a master title, you can do that. So let's say I want this one to be the master title. I'm just going to change this over to master title, and I'm going to drag that into my project panel. Once I do that, of course, I could change the name to something like master title, and then anytime I drag this into my timeline, it's going to be the same. So if I change master title to title master, both of these are title master. If I copy it and paste it, and change this new one to just say master. Well, they all say master now. So once you've dragged it into your project panel, it has that sort of master relationship. Before that point, it's sort of each instance is its own title. Now, one thing I should mention is there is a workaround for not being able to select multiple layers. So for instance, let's say I want to change the font on both of these type layers. Well, I can't select them both and do it even in the Essential Graphics panel. I can basically do a workaround, which is this Master Styles box. So let's say I want to change the font, and I'm going to change it over to this one right here. So now that I have that selected, I can do something like add a stroke, make that a little bigger, and I can add a drop shadow, and I can change the font size, and I could go to Master Styles, create Master Style, and I'll call this Master Style. And I could select the other layer and apply that master style, and we'll apply all of those properties. So that might be helpful in some instances. It's probably not the workaround you're looking for in terms of working with multiple layers at once, but it's what we have for the time being. Now, so far we've been talking solely about the Edit tab of the Essential Graphics panel, but let's talk about the Browse tab. Now first I'm going to talk about some of these Premiere generated titles, and then we're going to talk about the After Effects integration. So basically you can save titles and bring them into the Essential Graphics panel for use later. So there's some pre-made lower thirds that Premiere will ship with, and you'll be able to edit, and of course you could come in here and just start typing, or come over here and just start typing, and you'll notice there are some notes like adjust the mask if you change the text, or mask, this mask removes the middle part. So there are things that you'll have to change if you need to customize these for your own type, but you can make some pretty nice animations. Now, discussing animations, I should have mentioned that your animations, your keyframing will still happen in the effects control panel. So you'll notice the keyframes are here, not in the Essential Graphics panel. The Essential Graphics panel houses all of these alignment properties and font and fill and stroke. A lot of these are in the effects control as well, but for full control you'll want to go over to the Essential Graphics panel. Now the other really powerful part, and I think where we're going to see some of the cooler uses of the Essential Graphics panel, is the After Effects integration, which allows for a new level of sort of creating presets in After Effects and templating it out to Premiere. So if I come over to the root, you'll see there's this AE News package. And this is one of the templates that it ships with again. So I'm just going to come down in my timeline, and I'm going to select this AE News title. It'll take a second to load it. And you'll notice, let me give it a second to animate. I can come right in here, and I could change the title to Retooled.net. And there it is, adjusting. But there's a lot more power that could come from this. So I can change the colors. So I can change the secondary color. Let's pick something different. And now I'm changing the colors in the After Effects project. Let me pick another template for you here. And let's do this lower third. And in this one you'll notice not just changing the colors of the text and the highlights, but I could even change the rotation of the globe. I can change the speed at which the globe is rotating. And for those of you who are more curious about this, we're going to do a whole deep dive into this workflow to show you how to template things out in After Effects for Premiere. I've recorded this video 3 times now, and I tried to include it in this video, and it just got too time consuming. So we're going to break it out into a separate video so that those of you who want to move on can. Now, if you have questions about the workflow, please let us know. Hopefully this second video will make it clearer, and hopefully you guys are going to enjoy some of these changes coming to Premiere and the Essential Graphics panel. Before we close this video out, I just want to talk about a few of the little changes related to this panel, and most of that is keyboard shortcut related. So the type tool has been changed to T in the keyboard shortcuts. So that's going to override people who are using the trim edit shortcut before, and that's now been changed to Shift-T. There's a shortcut Command-T, and that is a new text layer. So if I hit Command-T, you'll see it just makes a layer that says new text layer. There's a new shortcut for a new rectangular layer, which is Command-Option-R on a Mac. There's a new shortcut for new ellipse layer, which is Command-Option-E on the Mac. And S, which is the snap shortcut, let me just show you how that works, has also been mapped to work on snapping for graphics when you're in the program monitor. So if I hit S, you'll notice nothing happens. If I hit it again, you'll notice I'm getting these guides so that I can align these two layers and they snap to each other's anchor points and boundaries. So let us know if you have any questions. In the meantime, the last thing I want to mention is that people using the old legacy After Effects templating, those .aep and .aecap files will still work in here, but it's not the workflow going forward. So you can still do where you edit text under the Master tab on your Effects Control Panel, but this is the new workflow going forward. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed the new Premiere Pro 2017. Be sure to check out our new product, Color Retooled, which is a set of looks presets for Premiere Pro CC, a ton of easy presets that you can use in Premiere and SpeedGrade CC to quickly edit the look of your clips. Everything from brightness and contrast to vintage effects to things like vignettes that editors can quickly add to their clips and keep working. Also check out Relink Retooled, our conform tool for Premiere and Final Cut that will let you conform to your QuickTime media of different durations and file names than your original media. You can use it with combinations of tape name, file name, and of course you could use partial tape name and file name combined with metadata like timecode and frame rate to help you relink your clips quicker and easier than ever before.